We've all read the quotes, we've all heard the numerous mantras about how golf is really a battle between yourself and the golf course. But let's face it, what lots of us are interested in hearing about is how we measure up against our peers. So, in this video, we're going to talk about the results of our research into one, what the average handicap for men and women is across the world, and two, why a golfer's handicap is only an indication of how they're expected to score 25% of the time. That's only one round out of every four. So if we start our look at average handicaps, looking at the men's game, taking first the United States, where is the biggest golf playing country in the world, where approximately 8% of the population play golf. We can see the average handicap in the United States for men is 14.4. And breaking that down a little bit further, if you've got a handicap of 12.9 or better, you're in the top 50% of players. And if you're lucky enough to have a single figure handicap, you're in the top third of golfers in the States. In other major playing golf countries in the world, the picture is slightly different. If we look at Australia, for example, the average handicap is a good bit higher at 16.9, and approximately only 17% of players in Australia have a single figure handicap by comparison. Moving on to the men's game in England, the average handicap is a bit higher still at 17.2, although this compares to a UK wide average handicap of 16. So the UK average is a little bit better. Moving now onto the women's game, and again starting with the biggest playing population in the United States, we can see that the women's game in the United States and in general, this is a picture across the world, have much higher handicaps than in the men's game. In the US, that average is 26.4, and over 70% of women golfers in the United States have a handicap of over 21, with only 4% of women golfers enjoying a single figure handicap status in the States. Moving on to Australia, it's pretty similar. Average handicap is 26.7. Well, if we then again move on to England, we can see again a pretty similar picture with the average at 26.5. So with those stats, you can start to get a feel for the averages in different parts of the world, and certainly in these big golf playing countries. One interesting thing our handicap research also came across was in terms of the decreasing average of handicaps for men and women, and this was based on analysis in the States from the data from the USGA. And as we can see there, since 1991, average handicaps have been falling quite considerably. In the men's game, from 1991 to today, that drop has been over 2 strokes. Well, in the women's game, that drop has been even larger, coming down 3.5 strokes from 29.9 to 26.4. Well, the reason for these average handicaps falling, that's pretty hotly debated. Certainly, technological advances, people seem to think are playing a big part in it. But I'm sure as all amateur golfers out there will be pleased to know that the average is coming down rather than going up, which is a good trend to see for regular golfers. Couple of caveats to these statistics, which is probably worth focusing on, is that lots of players don't have a handicap, so therefore it's argued that the averages that we've looked at there are probably artificially low. And comparing handicaps across the world, like we've seen there in terms of between England, between Australia, and between the USA, these countries have different handicap systems, so it's not an exact science in terms of comparisons. And for example, in the United States, the slope rating is used when putting together handicap statistics. which the slope rating measures the difficulty of courses and adjusts handicaps accordingly. And that system's not used in the UK, for example. Now, the volume of data we've got, and compared here, this should give you a rough idea of how you are compared to the average. As I say, the well-worn phrase of lies, damn lies, and statistics, and the handicap systems are different, but I think it's fair to say that this will give you a rough idea of how you compare across the world, particularly in these three major playing countries. Another interesting piece that our research threw up was in terms of how often players play to their handicap. Research by the USGA's handicap research team says that golfers will only play to their handicap or better about 25% of the time, and on average, they'll be 3 strokes higher than their handicap when they play. So something to bear in mind the next time you hear someone boasting about how well they're playing, or you're worried about your next opponent in terms of they seem to be playing well and their handicap is good. Just remember that according to these statistics, they've got a 3 in 4 chance of not playing to their handicap on the day you're playing them. So hopefully that can give you a boost and give you a better chance the next time you're playing. Now, if you want to learn more about how your handicap stacks up against the average golfer and find out about the World Handicap System being introduced in 2020, which is going to make it even easier for golfers from across the world to compare themselves and their handicaps with each other, from the US to the United Kingdom, across Europe, Asia and the Southern Hemisphere, Google Are You Average? A complete guide to average golf handicaps, and check out our blog post.